I always knew Clarissa had a darkness to her. She smiled like a mirror, all shine, no depth. And the moment my father died, she stopped pretending. 3 days after the funeral, while the scent of lilies still clung to my clothes and the grief hadn't settled into something nameable yet, she showed up at the family estate with her lawyer, not ours, hers. And just like that, the will was read to Clarissa, the house, the lands, the offshore accounts, the jewelry, the antique car collection to me, a worn leather briefcase, that's it. When I stood up, stunned, my voice barely audible, I asked, "There must be some mistake." Clarissa leaned in, lips barely parting, and whispered, "He didn't love you as much as you thought." I almost hit her, but instead, I just walked out with the damn briefcase in my hand and a hurricane inside. My chest. My name is Leah. I was born 5 minutes after Clarissa. We were twins, technically. But if I was winter, she was fire. And if I was trust, she was betrayal. Our mother died during childbirth. Our father raised us alone. He tried to be fair, I think. But Clarissa, she was made of silk and razors. She knew how to get what she wanted with a look, a lie. A line of tears that dried the second she got her way. Growing up, she called me the shadow, and I played along, because shadows keep the peace. But the day she took everything he ever worked for, everything I ever loved, I stopped being a shadow. I became something else. The briefcase smelled like dust and pipe smoke. It was locked with a rusted brass clasp. No key. For 2 weeks, I stared at it, left it in the corner like a reminder of my worthlessness. But grief turns like a wheel. One night, I couldn't sleep. I took a butter knife from the kitchen and pried it open. It creaked like a throat cleared, after years of silence. Inside, a faded photograph of our father as a boy, holding a wooden slingshot, a newspaper clipping from 1987 about a fire at the Westwood textile mill, an old map of the estate grounds, and a single letter, yellowed, sealed, addressed in his handwriting, to the daughter who deserves the truth. I stared at it for an hour, then opened it. Leah, if you're reading this, it means she won. At least for now. But there are things she doesn't know, things I couldn't tell you while I was alive, because I didn't know who to trust anymore, not even my own blood. Clarissa, she's not who she says she is. She lied about everything, including who she really is. You weren't born with a twin, you were born alone. She came into our life when you were 4. I was weak, grieving, drunk on sorrow. She was 6, abandoned, cunning. I adopted her because I thought I was saving her. But I brought a snake into the house, and I never forgave myself. She found ways to make you think you were the same, and I let her, because you were happy, and I was afraid of the truth. But know this, she stole my will, the real one, the one that named you as sole heir. She forged another. I found out too late. She had help, but I hid something no lawyer, no judge, no thief can touch. It's buried beneath the orchard, under the oldest tree, marked by stone and shadow. It's yours, and if you find it, everything changes. Your real father, J.H. I dropped the letter, my knees buckled. Clarissa wasn't my sister, she never was, and now I knew why the inheritance felt like a crime. Because it was, and the only person who could undo it was me. The orchard was an hour outside the city, past the rusted iron gates of the estate I no longer owned. I drove there, at midnight. With nothing but my father's letter, a flashlight, and a garden spade tucked into the back seat of my old Honda. The road was wet from a late summer rain, and everything smelled like damp earth and memory. The estate lights were off. Clarissa must have been at some gala, wearing a stolen necklace and sipping wine over someone else's grave. I parked far from the house, walked through the field like a thief. The orchard hadn't changed. Rows of twisted apple trees, thick with moss and secrets. But I knew which one was the oldest. Dad used to call it the first root. Said it was planted the day I was born. I found it easily bent and hollow, its bark curled like old parchment. Beneath it was a stone, flat moss, and carved with a single letter, L. I dropped to my knees. The spade sank easily in the wet dirt. I dug like I was clawing my way out of a nightmare. My hands blistered. The earth turned red under my fingernails. And then, I hit metal, a box, steel, heavy. I pulled it out, wiped off the mud, pried it open. Inside were 3 things. A videotape labeled October 1997, Westwood office, a birth certificate, mine with no sibling listed, and a ledger, black leather, covered in initials and wire transfers. I flipped through it. It read like a map of corruption. Names I recognized, board members, city officials, lawyers, all paid off. Some paid by Clarissa. Some paid to her. My head spun. She wasn't just a fraud. She was organized, protected, deadly. The tape was the key. I just didn't know how yet. I didn't sleep. Drove straight to my friend Ethan's house. He used to work in AV and owed me a favor from college. Didn't ask questions when I showed up with a VHS and a face like a storm cloud. He hooked it up in his garage. I sat on a milk crate. Shaking. The tape began. It was security footage. Grainy, time-stamped. Dad's office at the Westwood Textile Mill. October 14, 1997. I was 5. I watched him at his desk. Writing. Then the door creaked open, and she walked in. Clarissa at 10 years old. Long hair, dark eyes, the same smug smile, just smaller. But she wasn't alone. A woman stepped in behind her. Sharp cheekbones, long red coat. She said one sentence, clear as glass. She's ready. Just sign the paper. Dad didn't move. His voice trembled. I'm not putting her in the will. She's not mine. Clarissa stepped forward and said, without blinking, then I'll tell everyone what you did in 1989. The woman added, we both know the fire wasn't just an accident. Dad looked broken, terrified. Then the screen flickered and cut to black. I stared at the screen, pulse roaring in my ears. The Westwood fire. It killed 2 workers. Dad never spoke of it. They blackmailed him. That was how she got in. Clarissa forced her way into our family with secrets and threats, used Dad's guilt like a crowbar, and I loved her. Called her sister, defended her. Got that. I drove home with the tape and ledger in my bag, like holy relics. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't nothing, but someone had been watching me. Because the next morning, there was a white envelope slid under my apartment door. No address, just one word, printed in red, stop. Inside, a photo of me digging under the tree. A second photo of Anna, my goddaughter, walking home from school. Then, a torn scrap of my father's letter, burned at the edges. I dropped the photos, heart pounding, ran to my phone, called Anna's mom, called the school, called Ethan. Everyone was okay. For now. But I had their attention. And they were letting me know that if I moved forward, they'd move faster. I wasn't scared. I was enraged. For the first time in my life, I saw her clearly. Clarissa wasn't a sister. She was a thief with perfect posture, and she had stolen everything: my name, my family, my future. But she didn't know that the letter had been found, and she definitely didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't go to the police. I didn't go to a lawyer. I went to someone worse. His name was Bruno Cortez, a former corporate investigator turned private fixer. The kind of man who wears the same gray jacket every day and knows how to find the dirt beneath white collars. He used to work for my father, and he hated Clarissa. I showed him the tape, the ledger, the photos. He said nothing for a full 5 minutes. Then he muttered, she's good, but not clean. You just gave me blood in the water. Bruno didn't deal in morals. He dealt in leverage. And what we had was gold. Clarissa had built a house of glass. Bruno knew exactly where to throw the stones. He found a man named Victor Marlowe, one of the lawyers who'd witnessed my father's fake will. Turns out Victor had a history of debts, gambling, mostly. Bruno paid a visit. Within 3 days, we had a sworn affidavit stating the will was forged. 2 signatures were fabricated. The notary's stamp was copied. Even the paper it was printed on didn't match the batch my father used. And then came the kicker. Victor claimed he was paid through an offshore shell company, tied to Clarissa. That was strike 1. Strike 2 came from Ethan. He scrubbed the original tape and enhanced the audio. There were 3 words whispered under the blackmail threats that changed everything. She's not your daughter. It wasn't just about inheritance. It was identity theft. She had become me, in reverse. She'd worn my reflection for years, and we never noticed. Dad never adopted her legally. There were no records, no custody papers, nothing. She had no legal right to anything, which meant the forged will was more than theft. It was fraud. Bruno said we needed one final piece, something emotional, human, devastating, and it came in the most unexpected form. Ethan, again, digging through old footage, he found a home video of my 8th birthday, the cake, the candles, Dad laughing behind the camera, and Clarissa sitting in the corner, silent, watching me. Her eyes were not those of a sister. They were sharp, calculating, cold. The video didn't prove a crime, but it showed a pattern. The predator in the background, the girl who planned everything. We packaged everything: tape ledger, affidavit, video, and I leaked it first to a small journalist who had once interviewed my dad, then 2, 3 more, then to one of those viral documentary accounts on social media. Within 48 hours, the name Clarissa Hartwell was trending. Fake heiress will forge your estate snake photos of her at fundraisers, at charity events, at society galas, all resurfaced with captions like, "She stole her sister's legacy, but she didn't know about the letter he left behind. Her PR firm dropped her." The estate lawyer stopped answering her calls, and then, on a Wednesday morning, a letter arrived at my apartment. Subpoena. The court was reopening my father's will, and they wanted both of us present. The hearing was public. Clarissa arrived in beige, the color of innocence, hair pulled back, fake modesty stitched into her smile. I wore black, not for mourning, for war. She tried to look at me like I was being dramatic, like she hadn't spent the last 10 years burying me under polished lies and marble floors. The judge spoke. The evidence was presented. No interruptions. Clarissa's lawyer tried to object to the VHS, claiming authenticity concerns. Bruno stood up and provided the original timestamped security logs from the textile mills archive. Silence. Then came Victor's affidavit. Clarissa didn't blink, but her jaw clenched. Then came the financial records, linking her shell companies, 2 payments, property transfers, laundering. When they played the home video, Clarissa had the audacity to wipe a tear. Fake, of course, but when they read the letter, her mask cracked. The judge paused, then spoke words I will never forget. "This court finds substantial evidence of fraud, forgery, and undue influence. The will in question is void. The estate is to be reassigned to its rightful heir, Leah Hartwell." I didn't cry. Clarissa did, but not for my father, not for me, for herself, because for the first time in her life she had nothing left to steal. As we left the courtroom, she grabbed my arm, whispered, "You ruined everything." I looked her in the eyes and said, calm and cold, "No, Clarissa, you did. You just thought no one would ever find the letter." Then I walked away. You'd think the story ends when the judge drops the gavel, when justice is served, and the villain leaves in disgrace. But life doesn't work like that, especially not when the villain is Clarissa Hartwell. I reclaimed the estate a month later. It was strange walking into the house again, this time not as a guest, not as a ghost, but as the rightful heir. The halls felt colder, as if they remembered her lies, as if they weren't ready to forgive. The staff was gone. She had let them all go before the court date, probably assuming she'd be back with a vengeance. All that remained was dust, silence, and echoes of her perfume still clinging to the curtains. Room by room, I peeled away the layers of her, the framed photos where she smiled too wide, the velvet chair she never let anyone else sit on, the safe in Dad's office empty now. Or so I thought. Until I found the envelope. It was wedged between the safe's inner wall and a false panel, stuck so deep I had to use a coat hanger to pull it free. Inside was a photograph and a handwritten note. The photo was of a little girl, not me, and not Clarissa. Somewhere foreign, pale light, winter clothes. The note was in my father's handwriting. Her real name was Anna Cordova. She was brought to the U.S. under a different identity. Ask Bruno to check immigration records from 1991. I should have told you sooner. Forgive me. Anna Cordova, not Clarissa Hartwell. My sister never existed, and now I had the proof. Bruno found the rest. Clarissa or Anna had been part of a network, not just a liar, but a long con artist, trained from youth. She'd slipped through the cracks of orphanages, refugee systems, and wealthy grieving families. My father wasn't her first. He was her biggest. And I had been her last. The media caught wind fast. By October, there were headlines: fake heiress unmasked, Anna Cordova's global trail of deceit. Interpol had opened a file. The FBI had questions. 3 countries wanted extradition. And yet she vanished. No apartment, no bank activity, no phone records. She disappeared like smoke through a keyhole, but the damage she'd done stayed behind. Like ash. Meanwhile, I stayed in the estate. It didn't feel like home yet. Some nights I'd walk the halls barefoot, whispering apologies to my father for not seeing her sooner. Other nights, I'd open the windows and let the cold wind in like an exorcism. I rehired the staff, restored the orchard, started a foundation in Dad's name, helping orphans and children lost in broken systems, like I now knew she once was. But in the back of my mind, I knew Clarissa wasn't done. She'd burned too many bridges to come back clean, which meant, if she came back at all, it'd be dirty. Then one night it happened. A package arrived at the estate gate, no return address, just my name, inside. A silver necklace I hadn't seen in years. It had been missing since I was 10, the one Dad gave me when I learned to ride a bike, and a note, typed, crisp, cold. You can have the name, the house, the money, but you'll never forget I existed. We are bound, Leah. You were always the shadow. Don't get comfortable in the light. My hands trembled. I checked the estate cameras. Nothing. No footage. She knew how to move, how to disappear, how to make you question if she was ever real. But the necklace was real, and the message was clear. She was still out there, watching, waiting, wounded. The truth. I wasn't afraid anymore, because I wasn't the shadow now. I was the storm, and I knew something. She didn't. She ran out of secrets, but I had just begun opening the vault. The night I found the necklace was the night I stopped pretending Clarissa was gone. Because ghosts don't leave gifts, and monsters don't sign their names, unless they want to be found. I stayed awake until sunrise, thinking about the note. You'll never forget I existed. No, I wouldn't, but not for the reason she hoped, because now I understood her fully. Clarissa never wanted the estate. She wanted identity. To rewrite her story and bury mine. She didn't need me to disappear. She needed to become me, and when I took everything back, I stole the mask she wore for 2 decades. That was the real wound. That was the one she couldn't heal. I started tracing her digital footprints. It was harder now. She was smarter. No accounts in her name. New social media. But even ghosts slip sometimes. Bruno had contacts in Berlin, Barcelona, and Buenos Aires. 10. It was there, Argentina, that we found the whisper. A woman calling herself Clara Weston, purchasing property under a shell company. The face blurred and security footage was familiar, even pixelated. I flew out within the week, alone. The property was a vineyard outside Mendoza, remote, private, elegant. I rented a car and drove there with nothing but the necklace and the original letter from my father. I didn't tell Bruno, didn't want backup. If this was going to end, it needed to be face to face. When I reached the gate, it was open. A gravel path cut between grapevines, birdsong echoed in the hills. And at the end of the path stood the house, all glass and stone. She stepped outside before I even knocked, like she'd been waiting. She wore white linen, bare feet, and sunglasses, too large for her face. Still beautiful, still dangerous, Leah, she said, as if I'd come for tea. I held up the necklace. You dropped this. She smirked. And you crossed continents for it. No, I said, walking closer. I came for the truth. Clarissa, or Anna, tilted her head. You already have the truth. What could possibly be left? I took the letter from my bag, unfolded it slowly. You never saw the second page. Her lips parted, almost imperceptibly. I read aloud. Anna is smart, but she's not careful. She left something behind, the name of the man who brought her here. His initials are on page 42 of the ledger. If anything ever happens to me, find him. He knows what she's capable of. Her voice dropped. You're bluffing. I stepped forward. Am I? I could see it now. The fear, the unraveling. She didn't know everything, and that terrified her. For the first time since I was a child, I was the one holding the mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. You came here for revenge, she said. I shook my head. No, I came to end the story. There was silence between us, just wind and old wounds. She sat down on a bench, looked older, suddenly, tired. You think I ruined your life, she said softly, but I gave you a story worth telling. I laughed. You didn't give me anything. I took it back. She looked at me one last time, and said, then take it all. And she walked back inside. I stood there for a long time. The wind in the vineyard whispered like pages turning. I didn't turn her in. Not yet, because justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about truth. And I wanted the world to see her for what she was, not through courtrooms and headlines, but through her own unraveling. So I did something bold. I wrote the story. Everything, the fake will, the letter, the betrayal, the necklace on the doorstep, even the trip to Mendoza. I changed names, dates, locations, but the soul of the story, Raw, it was published under the title, The Sister That Never Was. It went viral. Movie studios called, podcasts begged for interviews. My face was suddenly the face of resilience, but I didn't do it for fame. I did it because the moment people read the story, she vanished again. She could no longer wear my shadow. Too many eyes were watching. 1 year later, I stood beneath the oldest tree in the orchard. The stone with the L still stood. Next to it, I placed a new one, for the father who left me a map when the world tried to bury me. I whispered thank you, and walked away without looking back, because I no longer needed revenge. I had something stronger. I had my name, my story, and the one thing Clarissa never planned for: peace.